Hello, friends, and welcome to the podcast. This is another episode for Help Me Buy Property podcast. And today's topic is all about property investment teams. And so, why are property investment teams important? Who needs to be on this team? How extensive the team needs to be? And naturally, when you talk about property investing and when you talk about teams in specific, people think about the transactions that they're part of or the transactions or the people that are part of the transactions. I'll take a pause here and I'll introduce my co-host here. Drum rolls, Cheryl Lee. Cheryl, welcome on the
Hello,
podcast.
hello, Moss. How are you doing? This is awesome. I love a good team. Hashtag teamwork makes the dream work, right?
Yes,
But I love that you also have a bit of a structure around what makes good team.
yes.
So let's share it with our audience.
Well, let's take a step back. Let's talk about why do we need a good team first. I think a lot of people tend to discount some of these thinking, right? As to why do you need a good team? You can make the team, you can build the team as you're going through a property transaction, right? And there's nothing wrong with
Mhm.
that. A lot of people do it successfully, but why be proactive about having a good team in place? And you, as a
Yeah,
chief process officer or the chief growth officer, you would understand the importance of the team the most, right? So, talk to us
oh
a bit
my,
about
my
that first.
goodness. I think as property entrepreneurs, we got to look at this, right? We are entrepreneurs. We are property business owners. And the moment that you look at that and recognize that to grow a business is not a one person thing. Businesses, if you look at successful businesses, it involved teams. It involved having different people be a part of that because when we recognize that we don't have all the skills and that we want to be able to surround ourselves with people who have the skills that we are missing, that you're going to have a better outcome, that you're going to be able to scale more, you're going to be able to leverage more of your knowledge and all of that. What's the famous thing? If the saying like, if you are the smartest person in that room, you're in the wrong room. Right,
Definitely.
and
Definitely.
this is also a mindset and an ego thing, right? When I say ego, I don't want
Hmm.
to put it in a bad way. It's more going
Yes.
of self awareness that the more that you want to control things and control the outcome and not allow other people to take things off you, you're
Yes.
going to be tied. You're going to be tied to that business.
Yes. Definitely. I completely agree with all of that. When I think about team from my own personal perspective, I see it as a diverse team or a bunch of people coming together to solve problem more quickly, more efficiently, more productively, right? And so, me as a person might have made five mistakes in life, and I've learned from those five mistakes.
Mhm,
But if I have a
mhm.
team of 20, that's 100 learning opportunities that you've combined together. Imagine the power of how quick the decision making would be about the same scenario that we're all thinking about, right? And so,
Yeah,
that's the power
yeah.
of team of a good team specifically.
Absolutely. And I love the word, like the impact that that has in terms of not just the business's growth, or it's the personal growth that you guys have as a collaboration to be able to go, I can leverage off Moss's experience and knowledge, and whoever can leverage off my experience and knowledge. And it becomes such a, again, scalable. That become you're leveraging someone else's knowledge and skill to be able to grow so much quicker. So team and property, if we can look at property and whether it's investing or development as it is a business,
Yes,
you have to look at it as a business. And team doesn't necessarily mean you've got to employ 20 people, right? Your team are going to be the people who are surrounding you. So they can be, we're going to talk about consultants and everyone else,
100%.
but don't just think that it's team that you need to employ.
Yes, yes, 100%. And I think again, a very important point here is more around understanding exactly that it's not so much about employing these people. You can't be all of the person. Of course, you can't have everything. You can't learn everything. Okay. So the team is there to complement the skills. It's not there to contradict. And so one of the most important things a mentor said to me once is that there is no such thing as self-made man in these worlds. Man is made out of the teams that they're surrounded with. And so the goals that they are going to achieve, or the goals most that you are going to achieve in your life, will be dependent on the team that you build around you. And so the leader provides the direction and the team basically goes out and implements it. And he used this perfect analogy at that time, and it just stuck into my head, that the team is, it's like driving a car with a GPS. And so the leader itself, as us, are the GPS. The team is the driver driving the car, and the car are the tools that you would use to make the journey awesome. And it's a perfect
Mm.
analogy when you talk about property as a business. And naturally, when you're transitioning your journey from a first time investor to an experienced investor to a high net worth investor, you start treating a lot of these people as your trusted advisors. You start treating a lot of
Yeah,
these people as your mentors in life, right? And and we'll talk about that in relation to how structured it is, and how do we think about this. But it's important that every little bit counts. I take advice from my wife while she's not as passionate
that's
about
a wise
property.
man. That's what a wise man should do.
100%, 100%. And so, like, I intentionally ask her a lot of stuff because I know that she, looking at from outside in, would
Mhm.
have a completely different perspective to a lot of things. My risk appetite to a lot of these things could be quite significantly higher versus hers. And so she brings me back to balance. And so I might be going
Mm,
1,000 miles an hour, and she'll just hold me by the collar and say, "Hey, by the way, slow down. You don't need to do
that's
this."
it. Yeah,
And so that's the
yeah,
power
and
of
that's
team.
yeah. And what makes a good team?
There's a lot of things that makes a good team. Of course, number one thing is, experts, and that's what naturally people think about. They need to be expert in whatever they're doing. But it's also the accessibility of the team. How timely do you have access to the team? How holistic is
Mm.
the experience? Are you thinking about the same thing, about the same outcome? Are you all on the same page? How close you are to each other? How well do you know each other? Definitely, all of these things defines a good team.
And how do you then find the right people that are going to be a good fit for your team?
Sure. Look, I think passion is the magnet that drives the teams together. Passion about anything, okay, that would bring the team together, that would create unity. Be it workplace, be it property. You need to have the passion for property to basically go and push yourself in that, accelerated drive mode. And so
Mm.
if you think about the structure around how impactful the team can be, we can basically understand it from the word impact itself. Okay. And so the way I structure this, or I've thought about some of these things, is if you break down the words impact, it consists of five things. Let me think about it. IMPACT, five things. Yes. Okay. So if you think about impact, I is more about inner worth and mindset. M is more about mates or friends. P is
Mm.
more about peers and friends. A is more about advisors that you would reach out to. And T are the teachers. And of course, we'll go down in a lot more detail. You're not going to brush it off. I will
Yeah,
unpack this a
yeah,
lot more. But that's your team. It's everyone out there in this structure who is going to provide you the right balance, the right advice, will keep you in check, and make sure that you deliver the outcome, make sure that you achieve the outcome that you're trying to achieve.
yeah. I Let's dive in. I really like the how you've made I as I, inner self. Right? You as the leader, you as the driving force. You talk about the car analogy. When we talk about how property is a business, the number one thing from a mindset point of view, I really believe, is like stepping into the mindset of a leader. You need to be a leader to be able to bring a team together. But what have you noticed from a mindset point of view, the things that you need to do as a leader to be able to be the cohesion point of your team?
Look, it's important from as I was taking this journey through, and as I was exploring onto this journey about forming teams as well myself, I knew that I need to be clear in my direction and my thinking. I can't be reactive. I need to be proactive about a lot of these things. And so when you think about inner self and inner mindset, It's more about knowing what you want and how far are you going to go for it. It talks back to your passion. It talks back to the journey that you're going to enjoy. There's a saying in an Arabic language that the person who enjoys the process walks more. Or if I can frame this in a different way, the person who loves walking will walk a lot more further versus a person who is focused on the destination. Because that you have blinders on, you keep hearing about people talking about, oh, you need to have blinkers on and just focus on the destination. Tunnel vision, great tunnel vision, but you need to enjoy the journey. And the success is basically a byproduct of one of the
Yes.
milestones that you're going to achieve on that journey. If you don't enjoy the process of walking, if you don't enjoy the process of property investing, you would never truly be successful. You would never truly explore the true potential of your own inner self. What do you think about it?
Yeah, the saying is that it's not about the destination, it's about the journey and the growth and the adventure and all the other things that come along with that.
Yeah. And so it's the motivation that gets us out of the bed, right? But it's the discipline that you create around achieving what you want to achieve is going to make sure that you keep going in the direction that you are aiming to go towards. And so those two things basically defines the complete inner self and the mindset for myself. Of course, there are other factors, be fearless, mitigate, understand your risks. All of that comes into the picture, and that talks more about the clear thinking side of things. But one of the most important things that can be impacted, that can be a direct impact to mindsets, are the people that you surround with. And so the next
Mm,
part of the structure, which is made, so your friends, they have a maximum impact on your mindset. Don't you agree?
absolutely. So we hear this often. You are the sum of your five closest people, which worries me a little bit because I live with two very energetic children and two not as energetic grandparents as well. So I'm like, oh, I don't know if that's about right. But I know what you're saying here. It's, how do you ensure that you're surrounding yourself with the right people? Because, often your mates as well, they talk about the barbecue army where you might be doing something and they're like, why are you doing that? Property is terrible. The market, we're going into a recession, all of that. How do you make sure you're surrounding yourself with the right people that are actually lifting you up?
Yes. Yes. And so it's amazing. Like Grant Cardone takes it to the next level, right? And he says every journey in the life you need to ensure that you're changing those five people. He takes it to the next level. He's like, you don't need to be around the same five people. And of course, the five people that he's referring to are the people that you're networking with. And so if you're networking with high net worth people, you'll get there. They'll pull you up there. There's a natural tension for them to ensure that they hang around with the same people, right? And so if
Mm,
you are the least of the smartest in the group or in the pack, your natural intelligence becomes higher. You look at Andrew Tate, you look at Elon Musk, you look at their profiles in their lives. Basically, that's how they've excelled in their own lives. And so mates play a really, really big role in defining who you are and what you're going to do. And so as a
mm,
team, or as a kid, even, when my father used to say, you need to pick your friends carefully. You need to pick your friends carefully because they are the one who are going to define your life, or they are going to be the one who are going to define your results, and you don't really understand that at that point, right? And some of my
yeah.
friends are nerds, and we still laugh about it, that they are nerds because I was a nerd, or I was a nerd and then they became the nerds. And so naturally, as you apply some of that thinking back into your business life, you realize that yes, they have a massive influence. The way they act, the way they think, the way they operate, the way they make decision is how
Mm,
you would be making decisions. I've seen clients coming to me who have made terrible decisions because of these barbecue conversations. And on the flip side, I have seen clients who have taken a punt and made a decision and made $500,000 in a year just because of these conversations and people that they're surrounding with. It's amazing how much influence
yeah.
that these people have in the background on you.
I think there needs to be a rule that property conversations shouldn't be had in barbecues. And then there's like barbecues, there's beer, there's all sorts of things. But it's just, it's just not the place to have property conversations. But it is around, we talk around, but it doesn't mean that you don't have friends that are from your childhood. It just means that they're in terms of your circle of influence. Who are the people that you are allowing to influence you,
Definitely.
and the decisions that you make that are going to be impactful in your life personally, and I say professionally or financially, they're going to be different. They may be different people, right? Because your childhood friend may be doing something absolutely different to you, but you connect with them from a soul level, right? But
Definitely.
you might not necessarily, but that doesn't mean that you have to necessarily, from a financial point of view or a mindset point of view, doesn't mean that you need to necessarily be on the same page. But the people that influence your decision making, that's a different thing. How you're networking and you're really hanging out with those people that they need to be in the same values,
Yes.
but it's also making sure that if you're wanting to take yourself to another level, whatever that level might be, right?
Yeah.
There's no judgment around it. You've got to be around those people that are living that sort of that life, whatever that life may be,
100%.
and we're all
100%.
at different levels, and
100%.
just make
And
sure that you are learning and absorbing and growing as a result of that.
100%. And so, to your earlier comment, when you say, your net worth is defined by your network defines your net worth, I'll take it to a next step. I'll say, measure your network's worth by measuring their experience. And the experience does not correlate with age or wealth. Age is not a good proxy, and wealth can be, transferred through inheritance. So, the experience that they have is a perfect proxy of measuring their worth, and that is what you're going to get out of being part of these networks. There's a lot of property networks. You have an amazing community that you run. There's
Mm,
heaps of events that you guys do. There's heaps of other property communities out there. We run a Facebook group as well. It's not about collecting contacts. I think people get these
mhm,
networking and these
mm,
mates so wrong. They think that
yeah,
it's about sharing business cards and sharing phone numbers. It's about planting relationships. How successful can you be by just planting a single seed of relationship in someone's mind? It's about a
yeah,
self branding exercise when you're going out to these networking events, etc. I was talking to one of the BAs in my own business yesterday, and I said to her that I closed the client 2 years after we have been talking. 2 years. And she was like, "What? You spent 2 years
yeah.
on a client?" And I said, "No, we just connected." And they followed, they followed, they followed, they followed. One day they picked up the phone and they said, "Hey, Moss, I'm looking for a
I'm ready.
property. Can you help?" Like, and that's the power of planting a seed of relationship when you are
Yeah,
basically talking to people, when you are building the relationship, when you're building your network. That's what it comes down
mm.
to.
Yeah, and going there again with this level of genuine intention to help and support people, I think, and without an ulterior motive, but from the mere fact that you just never know where a relationship might end up. I had a call last week from someone I haven't spoken to for 2 years, but he was thinking of something. He said, actually, I need to give Cheryl a call, and that was 2 years ago that we last connected. But knowing that you just never know where relationships will take you, and the more, like you said, you're expanding your network, stepping out of your comfort zone, because I know a lot of introverts will be sitting here going, I really don't want to do this networking stuff. I have to, like, have
Yes.
nibblies with people that I don't know, make small talk and everything. It's not necessarily that. I think the fact that if it's property that find something that you have a commonality. That's how you build the rapport. Having the property groups or whichever are a good place to break down that barrier, because you're like, you can ask the question. So, it's your property journey. Like, what, share your property journey. And that's a good starter. Then it starts
Definitely.
to break down those barriers as well. But the more that like you said, we're surrounding ourselves with the people that are of similar values, achieving, either achieving the things that you're wanting to achieve, that's going to help elevate you.
Definitely. Definitely. And if you explore this further, things that are impacting your own mindset, what more than the relationships in the house, right? The husband and wife, the kids, the grandparents, and
Yes.
how they have been thinking, or the traditional thinking in the house versus the
Yeah.
non-traditional person, or the non-contemporary, or the contemporary thinking, or the non-conventional thinking that you're now bringing out to the world, especially in the world of investing. And so how do you think that P, which is the partner relationships, impacts property investing, and where do they fit in the team itself?
Partners, you can talk about your joint venture partners. Are you talking about life partners? Which partners do we want to dive into?
I would say both. Let's start with the in-house and the families first, and then we can talk about the joint venture
The,
partners.
the in-house partners. So this is interesting because there are some partners who are incredibly supportive, right? Which is then makes things a lot easier. But then there are partners who are not so supportive
Yes.
as well, and they're out there. Maybe we talk about that. Like, how do we deal with those situations where you've got a partner who, if you're going into property and they're, like you said, Moss, you're sort of more, you've got a higher risk appetite, where you've got a partner who's probably not as probably a bit more risk averse, but your
Mm,
partner's supportive of you. How about the
mm,
situations where you got a partner who's just like, I think what you're doing is terrible. You're wasting all our money. You're going to lose everything else.
yeah.
How do we navigate sorts of partners?
And it's an amazing question because I can give examples of both clients. And so I have one client, and please, if you're listening to this podcast, don't hate me for it, for me sharing your story. And so I have a client who's super aggressive, super risk taker, to that extent that makes me scared at sometimes. And, I want to hold her back. But you look at their partner and they are the sensible one. And the way I gauged it was when I was doing a property strategy session with them, and I realized that their partner is an important person on the table. They are a key decision maker, but because this person controls the finances, they are almost discounting their thinking. Okay, maybe it's not the top financial acumen that you're really looking for, but it's the risk mitigation that they're bringing on the table, which is quite important. And so they need to bring some of this into the conversation. So one of the things that I intentionally do is ask him to bring his partner on the call, ask him to have those conversations at the same time. And so you can see how different things are playing out. And so you are there almost as a bystander, finding a middle ground between the two, making sure that they're not taking undue risks, etc.
Are you
On the
part-time
flip
counselor
side,
as well?
oh, well, look, I mean, you make a good point. I think, look, as a property mentor, property coach, you almost feel that you are counseling in some instances because you don't want to break marriages, right? Because one
Yeah.
partner is going 100 miles an hour versus the other one, wants to go at turquoise space pace at 10 miles an hour or 5 miles an hour, right? So, but if you think about
And
on
you
the
raised
flip
an
side
important
where
point there, Mo. Sorry, I was going to just say you raised an important point that when you're talking about partnerships and two different people, the fact is that both of them believe their thought or their perception about something is right. They might be thinking about the same thing, but one person looks at it and thinks, "No, this is not risky," and the other person is thinking, look at the same thing, going, "This is really risky." And I guess from your part, and anyone that's trying to navigate this whole partnership thing is going, there is a middle ground there. You might not be able to see it right now, but there is a middle ground because one is trying to preserve. One's thinking they're trying to preserve wealth. The other
mm,
one's thinking I'm trying to build wealth. So
yes,
there is a commonality. We're still trying, So I guess the role of the advisor or the coach is to be able to go, how can we find that middle ground in these both, because they're both coming from the same, they're both coming from the same, well, not the same direction. They're addressing the same thing but from a different angle.
yes, definitely.
And it's
And the conversation becomes really, really interesting and important because if you have one partner who has finances and control and they are the one who are risk averse, and there is other partner who are sort of okay, on the risk, slide, or
mm,
the risk measure, that makes the conversation a tad more, harder. And because what you're now trying to do is you're trying to drive their wealth creation, you're trying to put their property portfolio on steroids, but the drive is not there, the risk appetite is not there. And so in those circumstances, what I've always found that is the validation, the continuous validation of the action that they're taking and the outcomes that they're receiving is what increases and improves their risk appetite. And so you work,
Yeah, absolutely.
again, with a particular client for the past 6 months, they see the validation, they take the next step. They see the validation, they take the next step. And so when they first came to me, they said, Moss, we just want to buy 2 properties and we'll spend our 30 years of life spending all of our money to basically pay it off. And that would be our retirement. They're already in 2 years' time on property number 4. And they're haggling me to buy property number 5. And I'm like, what if I've unleashed a monster?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And this is the point of going, how do I still balance the other person's needs? It's all around their needs. So one has this need for a level of security, I guess, and that you can still do that by doing more risk averse things, but being able to keep them informed around this is how we're managing the risk. This is how we're mitigating that risk. If I was able to show you this, this, and this, would it make you feel more comfortable? So I think it's more around making sure that your partners in life are you need to be, doesn't necessarily need to be on the exact same page, but the fact that it does help if you are on the same journey, you are on a similar journey because they're your partner. So if you've got a partner who isn't really seeing eye to eye about what you're trying to achieve, it's not that they're not supportive, is that they're coming from a place of fear. They're coming from a place of fear and doubt. So how do you help bridge that gap between I'm fearful and I'm doubtful of what the outcome is because, and then from your aspect of you're here, it's not about knocking heads. It's about how can I bring it closer to here and come up to a plane where we're moving forward together.
Absolutely. And if we take this further step into a much deeper conversation, we talk about partners, we talk about joint venture partners. Share us a bit of delightful stories that you have had in relation to. I know you've been part of a lot of joint ventures. I know I've been part of a lot of joint ventures. And so, how does joint venture partners become good teams? And would you leverage that relationship that you build in as part of a joint venture partnership?
Yeah. So partnerships, these are, particularly when you're going into property partnerships, I say, I look at property as business. There are some elements that you have some level of control, I guess, the elements in terms of making sure you've got, watertight joint venture agreements, that you're absolutely clear on roles and responsibilities. Like those aspects are fairly controllable, making sure that you've got the right people that are doing complementary skills to you. So that aspect, it's a level of self-awareness of going, what am I good at? What am I good at? If you're great at doing the networking with agents and negotiating and all of that, then make sure that your partner is someone who's great at maybe probably the operational and project management side of things.
Definitely.
So that you both know what the roles are. However, the part that I've found that's a bit trickier to navigate is until you're really in the relationship. Like if you haven't worked with someone before,
Yes.
to be honest, you don't really know what it's going to be like.
Yes.
A marriage. Like if you haven't really lived with that person and all of that, if you don't know if they're going to leave the toilet seat up or just leave mess around, you don't know that until you're in that marriage. And then you go, oh my goodness, this was either a fantastic idea or this was just dreadful.
Yes.
Thankfully, with most property transactions, there is a finite time.
Definitely.
But yeah, the more that you're able to really try to understand people and their behaviors and all that, and if that's something that really works with you, the more that you have this self-awareness of what you're good at and what someone might be good at, and just you really got to test it out. And partnerships, I've had ones that work incredibly well, and then there's some that are just like, oh my goodness, I can't wait for this to end as well. But it is important that as much as you can, like things just need to be professional. They need to be written down in partnerships, business partnerships. Things just need to be written down like all the time, so nothing gets left to doubt. I think that's the main
100%.
thing. That's from a
100%.
structural partnership type of from a
Yeah.
structural point.
I think
So what has
I
your
completely
experience
agree
been?
with you. Look, I think I completely agree with you. Joint ventures partnerships are important part of building a team. They are a powerful tool in driving your property journey to the outcome that you're trying to achieve from your portfolio. Because what you're doing is you're creating synergies within the business or property as a
Mm,
business and taking it, further away. Typical examples, serviceability partner, equity partner coming in together, joining forces as a team to basically taking it to the next steps. Really, really powerful. You're two-person bringing the team coming in together, delivering something. What I've always found is the closer you are, the more you fight. That's what my experience has been. I think the more new you are to the relationship, the more respectable the relationship remains because there is a professional courtesy that you always extend to each other. And so
mm,
we manage, JV partnerships on our property development deals for a lot of our clients as well when we are doing developments ourselves as a project managers, for example. And in those relationships, contracts, you're right, are the key. And
mm,
calling stuff out up front, having a minuted meeting and saying things is very, very important. I've seen brothers going against each other. I've seen friends going against each other. And so knowing what fallout looks like and understanding how this fallout is going to play out is very key. You need to talk about these things up front. You need to talk about if you exit at this stage, what is going to happen? If one of you die, God forbid, touch wood, it has happened to us in the past that one party gone, and so how do you manage some of these things? It's important. The contract becomes so key, so important in all of these JV partnerships. Of course, there is an underwritten or underlying sort of relationship that you're managing, and
mm,
you're
mm.
right in saying that once you have been in that sort of mini marriage or semi marriage relationship with the JV partner, you would always want to work with them. You would always want to be partners with them. And so the more of these relationships you create, the more faster you grow your property journey. And so it definitely has a good place in overall team formation.
Absolutely. And I'll give you an example. Like where I was forming a new JV partnership, and we're going through the agreement. I'm saying we've got to make sure that we account for this. Like I said, in terms of death, in terms of someone, if the other person walks out of the deal, and the JV partner's like, Cheryl, why are you coming up with these things? I'm like, because I learned the hard way. And I,
Yes,
I, I, I love working with you guys and everything else, but it's just like it all started like this. It all started, rainbows and butterflies, everyone's going in with the right intentions, but you just don't know. You just don't know what comes up that may put a spanner in the works. And the fact is that you're
100%.
going into this with the best intentions. Everyone goes into it, a JV agreement, and with the best intentions, but you just don't know what comes up in people's lives to change things. So you really need to make sure that you've got some sort of exit clause in some way or form that protects everyone, not just your own interest, but everyone's interest. Because something might happen in your life, and you go, "That's it,
100%.
I'm out of." You some divine intervention type thing. You want to go, backpacking in Nepal for 2 years or whatever, and you go, "That's it. I don't want to be building stuff anymore." So it's
100%.
it's things where you least expect, where you just need to be able to cover those
Definitely.
bases.
Definitely. And so if we extend this, of course, naturally, the natural extension becomes advisors, from an impact theory perspective. We are talking
Absolutely.
about advisors. And when you talk about advisors, you're talking about, advisors like mortgage brokers, you're talking about buyer's agents, you're talking about conveyancers, property managers, architects, builders. What is one relationship that you feel that is most important when it comes to advisors? Or you can't pick one and all of these are basically important.
I love them all. I love people. Most,
That was a
we
trick
talk
question,
about
by the way.
that was a trick question. You caught it me there. See the key ones in our property journey would be property accountant. That's it. If I had to pick one
100%.
out of all, it would be our property accountant. Mainly because there's so many there's the personal financial side of things, from a tax planning, from superannuation point of view. We've got our self-managed super as well. structuring, asset protection, that side of things,
Yes.
like our property accountant looks at. But then also,
Mm.
then the property accountant looks at, all right, if you're going to set up a new JV agreement or JV partnership, or you're entering into a new project, like we need to look at your investment structure to go, okay, what happens if you're either selling this property or you're going to keep the property?
Yeah.
Because what happens in terms of the profits from this project or this property or the income from this property, where's that going to, and how's that going to impact your personal finances
Yeah.
as well as your family's finances? So I'd say that property accountant is my number one advisor
Definitely.
in my team.
Definitely.
Definitely, I've got other people like the property lawyer, the buyer's agent, everyone else. But I'd say the property
Accountant.
accountant's my
Definitely.
key one.
Yeah. And look, I think one thing that I do want to call out, where people feel that they shouldn't be spending money on these people, right? Advisors, they're always cutting corners and they think, oh, you don't need, some of these people. For example, they can manage their own property, or they can go buy their own, house, or, oh, you don't need a handyman. I'll go out and do stuff myself, for example, and some of these things. And so I always say to people that you need to understand the value of your own time and how do you value it, right? And so the gardener comes to my place and he comes in and does the gardening pretty much every month, and he laughs at me. He's like, "Moss, you have a brand new lawnmower that sits right in front of me in the shed. You have a blower, you have a brand new chop, everything, right? But you are a lazy bastard." And I always say to him, no, I'm not lazy. You charge me $40-50 for an hour's worth of your work. I
Yeah.
value my time in thousands, not hundreds. And so I'll make thousands and pay you 100. I'm still net in my net benefit when I see it that way. And this is in no way, shape, or form, in condescending in any fashion or any manner. It's about time, value, money, right? And so he
Mm.
runs an amazing business, and I'm running my own business as well. And so, of course, it's important that you value the advisors, because the knowledge and the wisdom these people bring would not just save you money, but it would save you from a lot of hassles. I truly believe that, and so there's a quote that I quote it everywhere. It's that you can become knowledgeable from others' knowledge, but you cannot be wise from others' wisdom. And so these advisors, what they're bringing is the crux and the core of wisdom that you can't just replicate. It's really, really hard. And so anyone who says this otherwise, anyone who says, oh, you can replicate this by doing a course or by doing an education, no, you cannot replicate experience through a course. It's like telling people or
Mm.
teaching people how to swim by reading a book. You know, you
Mm.
can't you can't learn swimming by reading a book. You need to be out in the water, swimming, getting hands-on experience to basically learning that skill.
Yeah, it helps if you're being chased by a shark. You tend to pick that up very quickly as well. But you do. I mean, like,
Yes,
if we use the swimming analogy, is that you do need to learn the right strokes from someone. You go to
hundred
swimming
percent,
class and things like
hundred
that.
percent,
You're watching someone, like, either your parents doing it, or you go to swimming class. So similar to property, like
hundred percent.
you have you have mentors that might be able to help you through that, or the property strategist or a buyer's agent, for example, who
Hundred
then
percent.
if you don't like swimming, they might swim for you instead.
Yes,
If you don't like swimming with
yes,
the sharks, for example, then the buyer's agent can do the swimming in the sharks for you. So it's
definitely. Yes,
it's just knowing what your skill level is as well.
definitely. I think people spend a lot more time acquiring the knowledge than thinking about when to apply that knowledge and how to apply that
Mm,
knowledge. And so I think that's
mm,
the key thing, especially with social media. I say to people, social media is an evil and a blessing at the same time. It just
yeah,
depends on who do you listen to, how do you transform yourself, what sort of absorption are you getting out of social media. Podcast is an amazing tool if you're listening to us. No, I'm just kidding. Podcast is an amazing tool, if you're listening to the right people, right? Like us. But it could be detrimental. For example, if you're listening to people who are basically taking you down a rabbit hole, or people who do not have
Yeah.
experience and they are amazing on social media, but in real life you cannot gauge, how successful would they make you, or take you, or make you become. And so it's important to create that differentiation, especially with advisors, right? As to, you know as you said, your accountant, you trust your life with them. We run an accountancy business. I know how passionate people get when they come to you, because they know, you cannot lie to your accountant, you cannot lie to your doctor, you cannot lie to your lawyer. Okay, these are the three
Mm,
people that would basically navigate your life through. That would help you pave the path through. That would help you ensure that you're protecting your wealth without handing it to the tax man.
mm. I'd like to add to that, your advisors, you want to make sure that your advisors, the other person, I think, has been critical to say my journey, for example, is having a coach or mentor.
Yes,
And you want to make sure, similar to the property accountant, who in my regard, you've got to make sure they've got runs on the board. So they really understand property. They've got property, they've got their own property, hopefully a sizable one. If it's
100%.
development, that they know development, they've preferably done development as well, because then they understand the whole nuances and intricacies around that. And again, then the mentors, whoever your coaches are, that they've achieved some level of success as well,
100%.
that you're wanting to achieve. They've achieved
Yes,
that level that you're aiming towards, because they've gone through that path. I'm mindful that there are a lot of people out there who are offering some level of coaching or mentoring, but they're sort of still building
100%.
their businesses. They're still building their
100%.
businesses, so they're still trying to find their way around. We see a lot of this around,
100%.
right? And they're coming from a good place, but the thing is
100%.
that they're still struggling with things that you're going through. So they're not really going to be able to take you to that next level yet, because they haven't gotten to that point.
Yes, yes, but they can take you so far. And I think that's a good
Yes,
segue in talking about teachers, educators, and experienced professional. I think mentors,
yes,
educators, coaches, especially in the property transaction, or property coaches, property mentors, they hold a special place, because what they're bringing to the table is not just experience. It's also, what they're bringing on the table is not just the experience. It's about, navigating you through the mistakes and the failures, right? So it's not just the
mm,
successful part. It's about, avoiding those potholes, avoiding those landmines, that everyone would hit, right? I'll give you a very quick example. One of the mentors that I have in the property development space in my earlier life was, he used to always say, Moss, don't buy a block which is sloping to the back. And it always sticks in my head now. Don't buy a block sloping to the back. And so when I was first in the property game, and was quite new, I would just discount the block and be like, yeah, sloping to the back, nah, take it off. And so as you
yeah,
get mature in the journey, you realize, why did he say such a statement? Because he has given me a rule of thumb that is going to save me probably 90% of the time. There would be 10% of the times where sloping at the back is okay, because the legal point of discharge is at the back. And so you can run the stormwater management through that. Too technical, but it's amazing, right? And so the property coaches are basically there navigating you through the mistakes that they've made, the learnings that they've
yeah,
taken, and they're going to share their learnings with you, which is saving you, not only saving you time, but it's saving you cost. And it's also saving you the cost for the mistake, right? That,
mm,
that you would make, and, that would push you back 2 steps. Now you are 2 steps ahead instead of 2 steps backwards.
yeah. I mean, on that point, it's important to also not just take advice blindly, like really
Of
understand
course.
the reason behind that. I'm sure most of you were like, "Oh, why is that?" You asked the question,
Of
"Why?"
course. Yeah.
Those with children will know that the question why comes
Yes.
out about 5 million times when they start to speak.
Yes.
And yeah, don't be afraid to ask that question why, because you really want to understand. And once you really understand, and then you go, okay, I know why I'm making these decisions.
Yes. No, definitely. 100%. And so I think that's a very good lesson. Don't discount teachers, education, experienced professional. And so we've skipped an important piece in the middle, which is C, which is for colleagues and peers in real life or online. And so how do you think people are? How much do you think that people are influenced by people you listen to, or people who are around you as work colleagues?
Yeah, I'd say when you look at colleagues and I look at my peers like yourself or whichever, one thing I'd like to point out is that you don't necessarily also need to compare yourself. And you've got to be really clear on what yours, like a strategy needs to work for you, to be aware that everyone's goals and strategies are going to be quite different. But find the ones who, once you get clear on what your strategy is, then find the people who are implementing that,
Yes.
and are delivering that successfully, because it's very easy to be distracted and drawn to all sorts of different things, particularly in the property space. There's so much choice, right? There's like, do I do residential subdivision? Do I do townhouses? Do I do commercial? Do I do rooming? Or do I? And so you're like,
Yes.
I'm just gone into 10 different avenues.
Yeah.
Your colleagues and your peers that you want to get influenced by, like, importantly, sit back, slow down, get really clear on what the strategy is that works for you, and then be really intentional in who it is that you're allowing to influence the way that you carry out your strategy. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. So if I can explore this more, I always say that strategy is like a fingerprint, and everyone's fingerprint is different. You would have your own strategy in life, and you're building your portfolios depending on
Mm.
your risk appetite, depending on the cash flow that you're bringing to the table, depending on the experience that you have right now. And so 100% don't follow what other people are doing. Find your own piece, find your own
Mm.
niche, and find your own space. All of the three things are very, very important, right? And people see
Mm.
other people and naturally they're inclined because, it's a peer pressure that develops, right? And so people think, oh, I'm going to be like them. There's nothing wrong in idealizing people, right? I want to be them. I want to become them. I want to get to that stage. Nothing wrong with that. But
I want to grow
what
up to be
steps
like
have
you,
they
Moss.
taken? But it's important to understand that it's baby steps, right? It's not a 15-meter long jump that you're doing, right? No one gets successful. We're talking about this before. There is no elevator to success.
Mm. No,
It's a steep ladder. It's a steep climb up, and so it's important to understand that peer pressure can be detrimental on one hand when you are not thinking logically, but on the other hand could be amazing because you are taking what works for you and discounting what doesn't work for you.
yeah. And that comes down to making sure that you're confident in terms of what that strategy and that direction is. Again, if you're not sure, then make sure you've got the right advisors that are helping you
Yes,
come to that sort of decision.
definitely.
Advisors and teachers.
And teachers, I think teachers, I place a lot of emphasis on self-development. I was speaking to my wife the other day, and I said to her that I would have probably spent more than $300,000 in my self-development over a number of years, be it my MBA, be it other stuff. And this is no way me boasting about stuff. This is more about me self-realizing that there is no quick journey. There is a journey to personal development. And so if you want to achieve a higher goal, you need to be a higher person. If you are not that high person, you would never get to that goal that you want to get to. It's I read this somewhere, and this it resonated with me so much that when you talk about personal development, they say that the income does not far exceed the personal development space that a person is in. And so if you give $1 million to a person, they would quickly come back to the original self if they're not a millionaire in the first instance, depending on where their personal level is or where their personal development is. And I don't know if there's a study done around this or not, but it's definitely a notion that they said if you divide the whole world's worth into equal proportions and distribute it equally across the population, the 6 billion people, 7 billion people that you have across the world, they say that the income would come back to the hands of a few because personal development is what attracts success and nothing
Mm,
else. And it's amazing, right?
mm,
It's so powerful that you can reap the benefits in the future and it's the investment in today in your own self that you're going to see in the future.
Yeah, I'd say personal development has been the biggest win, the influence for my personal and professional growth. It was when I really recognized that it wasn't around my education. It was actually in the midst of going through my university degree, and it was a business and law degree. Like you said, we spent a lot of money on education. Oh my
Mm.
goodness. That I got given, and this is probably the worst time to give someone is Rich Dad Poor Dad. And I was like, do I stop uni now? And
Yes,
no, but it was the first foray into going, wow, I can do something differently, but then realize what it was it wasn't only the financial aspect of Rich Dad Poor Dad, it was the mindset part of Rich Dad Poor Dad that really triggered things
100%.
off to be able to go, what are our limiting beliefs? What do you need to do to step into that, like I said, that highest form of yourself? And it is, if you embrace that it's a never ending process, you will consistently strive and hunger for more growth in yourself. Because the more that you see that growth in yourself, you see it in so many aspects of your life, your relationships with your loved ones, your relationships with your partners, right? And your businesses and the things that you get involved in, the transactions that you get in property. So the more that you are growing as a person, technically and personally, then you can't help but just see incredible transformation in your life. So you
100%.
can tell I'm a little bit like I'm very philosophical, a bit hippie was.
No,
Um,
I think
but that's
all of that resonates with me. I think it would resonate to a lot of listeners as well. They would realize and understand that this is something quite personal to you and quite personal to me as well. And people who've been on this journey realize the importance a lot of these things. And so I'm big on teams, and closing this off from an overall perspective, that team for me is well beyond the people in the transaction. Team for me is people who are influencing the decision making of that transaction. And so it could be as wide casted as you want. And again, coming back to your original point that you made, that it's not so much about people that you're going to hire, it's about people who are going to help you make a strong financial decision, which is based on evidence, which is going to take you to the next level, which is going to help you get the outcomes that you're trying to achieve.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to hear whoever's been listening to this episode. Share with us who you have in your team, who's on your side, who is indispensable in your team. Hopefully, that includes your life partner as well, and be the moss on myself. That's totally fine, also. But yeah, no, this has been a great episode to talk about. Thanks for bringing it up.
Thank you very much, Cheryl. It was lovely to talk to you. Again, take care, keep smiling, be safe, keep investing. This is Moss and Cheryl checking out. Adios.
Ciao,
Ciao, ciao.
ciao. Bye bye.